And if you really watch that movie again and you get to the end, I think there's an argument to be had that when Alanis Morissette comes out as God, and whatever they did, basically getting through the loophole, if you will, through the Catholic dogma of the Bible, of the Catholic Bible,
Right.
Basically letting, I don't know, I think it ends with like almost anyone can go to heaven. Really, is like kind of the message of the movie, and except for fallen angels, yes,
Right.
But or anyway, I just think it could be argued that, well, certainly argued that was a total deception, the entire movie, and that Alanis Morissette was probably Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't seen the movie since it was out in theaters, so it's been a good decade since I watched it.
Yeah,
So
one other interesting thing about it, where you were just talking about how, well, before that, I'll precursor with this, listening to your Mike Heiser interview on Canary Cry, and just some research I've been doing. Do you think that all the angels fell at the same time with Lucifer, or do you think it's been like a progressive thing?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't. I really don't know. There's a couple different views on that. There's when I think Jesus talks about when lightning fell. He saw Satan fall.
And they took a third of the stars.
Took a third of the stars.
The tail of the dragon swept a third of the stars.
Right. And is that a future event? Is that a past event? I don't know. That's a good question. Doug Hamp believes that, and I don't know if this is exactly all his beliefs, but from what I understand, he believes that Satan was created on one of the first few days of creation, and that by the time he appears in the garden as a serpent, he already had his fallen angels with him, and he was already fallen at that point. Man, I don't know. I really can't tell you. What I do think is going on is that they have, I don't know. I think the angels have this some sense of free will in a sense that they can choose. I think it's much more black and white in the spiritual realm, if you will.
Well, yeah, because they're in full knowledge. They've been in heaven. They've been in his presence. It's not like us where we might reject salvation then accept it. They know everything from the get-go. You get one chance.
Right.
Make your choice.
Yeah. So I think that there could be angels that choose to follow Satan even now, that decide to turn their back on him. And a lot of it, I think, comes in the form of wanting to gain worship from humans. When you look at a lot of the deities of the Old Testament, like Baal, they're really looking to be worshipped by humans. And, it's kind of interesting because ultimately Satan wants that worship. But it's kind of like that deception, right? Like even the angel is deceived,
Yep.
So to speak. These gods are deceived to believing that they are gaining power or access or whatever through the worship and of people. And so I don't know. That's a really hard question. I couldn't tell you. I'm sure someone like Dr. Michael Heiser can probably articulate some of these ideas better, but I really don't know. And I'll be glad to find out when we enter eternity.
I'll let you know when I see Jesus in heaven. You'll be like, hey, Gons, I got the answer.
Exactly.
Who cares?
So going back into your film, there's just a couple things that I wanted to ask you. I'll start with the one that I know you'll answer quickly, and then I'll ask another. But you did reference Keith Thompson's Age of Evil, Aquarius film. I got to watch that after I watched your film, and I think most people that are interested in this stuff, for those of anybody listening, if you were to watch Leonard Ulrich's Secret Societies and Biblical Prophecy Volume 1, and then you watched Age of Deceit, and then you watched Aquarius by Keith Thompson, I really feel like there's a strong glue there. Personally, just as somebody who's viewed all those, if you want to get a good hold on what's kind of going on this view that we're talking about. But that being said, Keith Thompson's film, you had a picture of the DVD, and I haven't been able to find that DVD anywhere.
Yeah, I think he printed it for a while or limited amount, and for some reason he decided to back off completely from any sort of research regarding the New World Order. I don't know what happened on his end. I know he's still doing ministry, and you can probably ask him directly. He's not hard to reach, but he's been debating the Muslims a lot recently and doing apologetics and debates and all kinds of stuff with the Islamic worldview. So I don't know what happened with the New World Order stuff. I think he just felt done with it. But that film was really, really well done.
Yeah.
And he really does a good job of exposing theosophy, the roots of theosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that film really, I mean, that was one of those films that really got me thinking like, oh man, I really want to make a film that touches a little bit more on the UFO supernatural element of it to help, because I knew all along that it would be sort of a complementary film to this, to Aquarius.
Yeah.
Because Aquarius looks at a lot of the documentation and Freemasonry and theosophy and Helena Blavatsky and stuff. And I do too, but I sort of look at it from the more supernatural aspect and angle. So
Okay, so then moving on from that, you talk about the Black Awakening.
yes.
And I would like you to touch on the Black Awakening, and then also during, just before we get into the Black Awakening, the BBC Madness in the Fast Lane.
Yeah.
Dude, that was killer. Is that live or is that a reenactment?
No, that was real.
That's totally real.
That was actually taken from a documentary that the BBC did of the event that happened. And I mean, they were lucky to have cameras there. But in a nutshell, the Black Awakening is a theory proposed by Russ Dizdar, who's been doing this research for a couple decades now. And he's worked with the police force, with authorities, and he's come in contact with a lot of people who are practicing Satanists. And the Black Awakening is a phrase that was coined by the so-called Chosen Ones, another title that they gave themselves. But basically, it's this idea that in the end times, there will be a rise of satanic super soldiers, demonically enhanced people who are actually right now the demons that are dormant in many people who have been tagged with this sort of split personality. Okay, well, let me back up for a second. This is how Russ Dizdar explains it. He explains it as trauma-based. We understand trauma-based mind control if you've heard of that. You know.
Yep.
So what happens is when they're young, the people get traumatized, a purposeful trauma, let's say pain or whatever, and their personality splits. Let's say they split to 3 or 4 different personalities. Well, what they do is they assign a demon to one of those personalities, and the demon will sit there and wait. And the theory that Russ Dizdar proposes is that at one point there's going to be sort of a call for all of these people that have that inner demon to manifest and to suddenly start causing chaos all around the world. It's funny because the one movie that I think kind of illustrates this idea, and this is just a terrible example, but it's the only one I can really think of, is Zoolander. Have you guys seen Zoolander?
Totally.
Right, and Derelict and all that stuff. And you remember when the what's his name?
I used that in our 3rd episode as our intro video. If you actually watch the video on our YouTube.
Okay. Yeah. So there was a trigger, right? And he was triggered, and all of a sudden he, went after I can't remember who it was, the Prime Minister.
The Malaysian Prime Minister or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the idea, but at a global scale. So it's kind of creepy when you think about if all of a sudden your neighbor becomes this possessed, demonically enhanced super soldier and starts coming after you. I mean, that's a scary thought. And Russ isn't trying to scare anybody. He preaches the gospel every single day on his radio show and his books and stuff. But he wants to warn people about this. He wants to help people who have been traumatized and deliver them from those demons. So that's the Black Awakening in a nutshell. And, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it's exactly going to go down the way Russ describes it, but I wouldn't be surprised. And interestingly enough, we've seen, since the making of the film, and we had that guy in Florida, like eating some dude's face off.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
He was shot like 3 or 4 times. He kept going. You have all these, public shootings that happen of these guys going into schools and malls and all kinds of stuff happening. Some of it I think is, a genuine, just mental, stuff going on that causes that. Others, for example, who was the guy in Arizona? I don't remember his name. Who shot? I think one of the Jason John, something like that. Anyway, he was one of those guys that they went to his house. He had a satanic altar, and so this stuff is it's real. It's not just some crazy theory that Russ came up with. He's been in the field. He's gone to these places that have these temples and these little shrines, and these rituals were done. And it's a real thing. And, but we shouldn't be afraid of it. We should be helping the people that are in bondage to these things to deliver them from these demons, because, we have the authority in Christ, and it's through him that all this happens. It's not our own power. So yeah, that's a nutshell. You can get the book, The Black Awakening. Russ documents everything in that book. It's a really long book. It's like 500 pages or something, but he does a good job. That's kind of his manifesto, if you will, about this whole topic. So I recommend anyone who's interested in that topic to check that out.
Just one quick question before we move on to your second film.
Sure.
With The Black Awakening, and you may not be able to answer this, but maybe I'll just have to I plan on getting Russ's book, but not right away. I have a ton of reading anyway. With The Black Awakening, when that happens, does he theorize that those of us who are in Christ will have let's say my neighbor, which actually happens to be Sam, so not my neighbor, but
hopefully not your neighbor.
But what are the other people that live around here? Let's say they're one of these, what does he call them, covens, I think, or chosen ones. The call goes out and they start going nuts and they come at my family. Does he think that if we, using the name of Christ and the authority of Christ, we'd be able to stop them from harming us?
I think so. I mean, you should have Russ on. He has some stories that will blow your mind. I believe that he's been protected. The Lord has been protecting him because he's been in situations where people that all of a sudden were triggered came after him with a knife, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's had people, a story that I remember that really resonated with me, which was, really interesting, was that he was at a stoplight and somebody pulled up next to him and they were like blasting metal music or something. And they looked at Russ, and he can tell that Russ has this innate ability to kind of, be able to tell if something's going on. And Russ started to pray in his mind. He didn't even say it out loud.
Yeah.
He just started praying in his mind, and this guy started yelling at him, "Stop, da 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 da." And I mean, that's if you don't believe in spiritual warfare. I mean, if that happened to me, I'd be like, oh my gosh! I mean, pull out my Bible. I'm, just start
get back. Yeah.
But I do think that, and it's something that I think I need to work on as well. It is kind of like a muscle. You got to kind of work at it. I do think that we are protected, and of course, if they come after your family and stuff, I do believe there's a way to sort of combat these things, but it is a spiritual battle, and it is tough, man. I'm telling you, if somebody came at me with a knife, I couldn't just sit there and pray. It'd be really hard for me to just try to,
my first reaction is going to be to try to take the knife away from you, not, in the name of Christ,
right?
Back off.
Exactly.
That's not my response.
Right. And that's a tough deal. And Russ, I think at the beginning of The Black Awakening, if you read it, he paints a scenario of what it might be like in those days. So definitely some, physical precautions need to be taken. I believe that it is good to protect yourself in some way. I don't know if you listened to that one episode where I think it was the episode on fear. I talk about how I was like running around in my boxers with my dog's
bone
or something. Chasing. I don't think that would work very well against a demonically possessed zombie. But yeah, I do think that we do need to take physical precautions, but I think more importantly, we got to be right in the spirit, and that is going to be the ultimate weapon against the enemy.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to kind of delve into what you're doing now. I personally am very excited about your new film. I bought your film as soon as I saw it on YouTube this summer. I was like, I have to buy this because I want to watch it on my TV, on my DVD player, and I've shared it with Daniel since and some other people. So just thanks again for what you're doing.
Awesome.
So let's move into volume 2. I believe it's what is it called? It's called Alchemy in the Image of the Beast or something along those lines.